Hello and welcome back. Welcome to all our viewers. Some of us have been with us already this morning, Ekaterina, for two other speakers. So they're doing the long haul. You'll be the third speaker. And some people are just jumping on just now to join us for this session. Dr. Ekaterina Todarello is going to be taking us through. And the topic of this session is called Hear Me Roar, Activating the Root Chakra and What It Means for Leadership. And I'm fascinated by this particular topic because I do, excuse me, I've just got to clear my throat. I do a lot of work around leadership, and I've never heard leadership and chakras talked about in one sentence before. So I'm really looking forward to what you have to share with us. Would you like to kick off by introducing yourself?
Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you for having me back. It was such a pleasure and honor to be part of your amazing team and presentations last time, and I'm thrilled and happy to be here today as well. And yes, it's quite an unusual combination, putting chakras and leadership in one sentence. But yes, I'll just say a couple of words about myself. I used to be an academic, and last year in December, I started my own company called Ekaterina Institute, Higher Self-Education. And I am focusing on delivering mindfulness-based stress reduction programs, writing and delivering programs on mindful leadership and mindful management, mentoring employees and students and leaders. So this is what I am creating space for. And I think the time is right and ripe to talk about this important thing as energy.
Yeah, and we've already had my co-host AJ. She says, I love the idea of leadership and chakras in one sentence. So there you go.
Wonderful. Right. So let's start. I actually thought about that when I was doing my yoga teacher training, and my experience in teaching leadership and management came back on stage with that. And any management and leadership student knows Maslow's pyramid of needs. But when you really think about it, it's chakras.
Yeah, that's right. It's much more superior than Maslow.
Yeah. So, from that point of view, understanding what chakras mean are really important. But I want to kind of go, have a little bit of a caveat, I suppose, here, because when we talk science, and I am a social scientist, yes, finding evidence for chakras in the body is really hard. Japanese scientist, or rather Japanese researcher, Hiroshi Motoyama, devoted his life to understanding chakras. In Wikipedia, he's called pseudo-scientist. Really finding physical evidence of chakras in the body is hard. So, and when I looked into the research on chakras, scientific research, all the caveats are around the fact that, well, we understand that chakras do not exist, but let's talk about them anyway. When we start thinking of yoga and thousands of years of yoga practice and yoga science, then of course we come into a different realm of conversation and different realm of understanding, which is somatic understanding and bodily understanding. And everything comes from that truth, from what is going on inside your body. When your fingers are tingling, it's real.
Yeah, try and tell a yogi that there's no such thing as a chakra.
Yes. When your fingers are tingling or buzzing, that's energy, right? When you feel something in your body, some type of sensation, that's energy. Yoga Sutra, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras mention chakras as well. And yes, Ayurveda, the science of life, cannot exist without understanding chakras. If we talk about Chinese version and Chinese wisdom of acupuncture, which is clinical science nowadays, right? And also the science of meridians, or understanding how meridians work. So there is a connection and parallels between Chinese understanding alternative medicine and Indian medicine, right? So there is yeah.
Surely if they can find evidence for meridians, they can find evidence for chakras.
There is a lot of work going in there, and for today, I don't want to kind of dwell into that. But they are trying. They're really trying. I mean, when we, for example, if we make a parallel with mindfulness, and the whole point is about the connection between mind and body, right? I mean, if you that's the end goal, so to speak. Let's find the connection between mind and the body. And speaking of mindfulness, how much research is there on the effect of mindfulness on the body, on physical level, at the physical level, but also at the mental level, psychological level. All the research is exponential, absolutely exponential on the benefits of mindfulness. So yes, they're kind of, there are different aspects of how to look at this energy work, or rather energy concept, as chakras. But I thought that it's really poignant into to today, in what we're experiencing today, to look at it and see what we can learn. Another caveat I want to kind of put in is that I was reading Osho the other day, his chakra book, and he is warning against really going into the theory of chakras. Like with leadership, we can teach students theories of leadership, of management. Does it mean that they become good leaders, inspiring leaders, or efficient managers? Everything comes back to practice. Everything comes back to lived experience, reflection, learning, unlearning, and moving forward with your awakening to who you are. This is what it is. And today I find that as invitation to this sort of process for everyone. It's not so much, again, about the theory of chakras. I mean, in a sense, it would be a waste of time if we just keep talking and talking. I'd suggest that we do it. We engage in yoga activity, and I will talk a little bit more about what we need to do to counter the imbalances in root chakra. But I thought that this caveats this kind of little asterisks on our discussions are about the science of chakras, and about the theories of chakras are important ones.
Absolutely.
All righty. Yeah, another thing I wanted to add here is that it kind of signifies, and why I resonated with the topic of the entire series, is because my own journey, my personal journey, is basically coming from theory to practice in many ways. And this is why, I suppose, in my own case, everybody's life is different, and the experiences they have. But from academia to my own business, to practicing that leadership, to practicing that awareness, and addressing things that I need to address to move forward and live authentically, are kind of part of that as well. All right. So, and I suppose a lot of people know what chakras are, but I will still unravel it a little bit.
No, I think you'll have people on the call that won't know, or they might have heard the word chakra, but they won't necessarily know what it is. So please do describe it. Yeah.
Yes. So chakra translates from Sanskrit as a wheel or a disc. essentially it's a wheel of energy or a disc of energy. They're saying that in realized people, these discs are quite high or quite wide and strong. In people who live with more unconscious patterns, they can be smaller. But again, we have no evidence for that. But in a sense, that's what it is. Chakra is the wheel of energy within our bodies. And there are quite a lot of good books on chakras, if someone wants to understand what they are. But again, coming back to what Osho was saying, we don't need even to know about that.
Do you have a specific one that you'd want to recommend, and we can put it in the notes? Or
well, they're all, and again, there are different even systems of chakras. Yeah, I heard about
22. In general, go find a book on chakras.
22 or 9 or 4. The very conventional or mostly widespread framework is 7 chakras. And we start with root chakra, which is called Muladhara. That's the one that I wanted to talk to you about, to everyone about today. And then we go through all 7 chakras. And the second one is
Muladhara, the Sanskrit word for it?
Yes, it is a Sanskrit word, and it is translated as the root. So it is the root. Yes. So just give me 1 second. Something popping up on the screen here. Shall we go through all of them just to kind of see what they are?
Briefly, but I'd like to hear your concentration on the root chakra. Yeah, so maybe
just really very briefly. So there are 7 of those, and the second one is the sacral chakra. It's that sexual center, the center for recreation and creativity and playfulness. Then we come to Manipura, which is the solar plexus, the third one, which is about our power, our confidence, our identity, and it's basically that middle, which connects the lower chakras with the higher ones. And then we come obviously to the Anahata, which is translated as an unstuck from Sanskrit. It's our heart chakra, and it's all about compassion and love, self-acceptance, forgiveness, these types of qualities. Expression is the Vishuddha, the 5th chakra. Comes with our voice, how we express ourselves in the world, how we stand up for ourselves, all these type of things. And then the Ajna or Agna, the different pronunciations for that, that's our third eye. That's intuition, deeper knowledge, not ego, but deeper knowledge and intellect on that level. And then Sahasrara, which is the crown chakra, which is the chakra of self-realization, self-transcendence. So this is the very quick one, and they're all Judy, the one who's she wrote a fantastic book on and very popular book on chakras, describes it as a rainbow bridge, because all the colors of the rainbow are represented by 7 chakras, and it's quite helpful to remember them that way. So in that, then I'd like to to go into Muladhara a little bit more. And yes, so Mula is root or origin or essence in Sanskrit, and Adhara is basis or foundation. That's this 2 Sanskrit parts of the word. And it is the support that we have. It is the grounding that we have. Again, the connection with physical are debated in the scientific world, but essentially it's the coccyx and the first 3 vertebrae at the basis of the spine. Endocrine gland is the adrenal cortex and adrenal glands here that are connected to that as well. So on a physical level, that there are these connections too. And I mean, factually, I can talk a little bit more about it, but I think most important part is just to kind of see how it is represented in our lives. And one of the most important questions is when we start looking at what Muladhara or root chakra is for us, is that, do I belong here? meaning on earth. And do I belong in this family system, right? Because this is the start, right? And the color, by the way, the color of this chakra is red. It's the most dense, the densest color that exists. That's why we have red traffic lights, because this is what you see the first. The earth, the element that it represents is earth, so really quite dense as well, that grounding part. And when we start looking at the associations of this chakra, that associations that the chakra creates, is that our ancestry. How do I belong into the family system? How do I belong on this earth? And Osho was talking about the interestingly about the second one, when about procreation and about the sexuality and all. But he said, well, in this system, the one that is a bit lower, which exists in Japanese culture, which is called hara, where
Do you mean lower than the root chakra?
No. In between the first and the second, in this kind of system, in Japanese culture, they have the hara, and we know about that tradition, long-term tradition in Japanese culture. And again, Osho was talking about that, about harakiri, that death through that chakra, and that it's instantaneous, basically. But what he was referring to is that this birth and life and death chakras are very close to each other. And then it occurred to me that in order for us to even come to the point of the second, the navel, that place of creation, whether it's children, whether it's ideas or project or any type of creativity, we actually need to claim the place of being alive. And that's the first chakra. You cannot create something if at the spiritual level you actually didn't arrive, if it makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like and that's why there are these affirmations about each chakra that's been created. And for the first one, it is simply.
So is that signifying like the interdependence of the chakras on each other? Because they're not, you're talking about them as 7 different things, but they're also very interconnected as well. So does that separation between life and death being so close infer that they're actually even more connected?
Well, all of them are connected, of course. And the first one is that awakening that happens on the fundamental level, in a sense. And all 7 are, like, when we start talking again about yoga and understanding of human body from that Vedic perspective, is that we have in the spiritual anatomy, we have Sushumna, which is the main channel, which run an energetic channel which runs parallel to our spine, and this is basically how the energy rises. But what also happens is that we need to address issues that we have at each level, right? We need to look at each level and work with those to be able to progress in our own evolution, in our own development. So this is kind of the personal, obviously, part of that. But when we start looking at what it means for leadership and how it translates to leadership, then when we and that first part, that for us humans, right? Instinct, survival, shelter, basic needs, primal needs. Again, the basic family that we belong to, ancestry. When we start translating that into the organizational world, what does that mean? What does that mean for leadership? I think it raises so many questions in terms of what leaders can do to be able to navigate that basic thing.
It's also about the leader's identity in the first place. And I think you often see in organizations that particularly new leaders, but also leaders that are inexperienced, that they struggle to find their identity, and they struggle to find their grounding and their rooting. And do you know what I mean? It's not something that's easy for many leaders. It's a real process, and I think that's directly connected.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it does start from the personal growth, from that personal awareness, that mindfulness that comes into who am I. And a lot of leaders kind of jump straight into different other areas of how to lead the organization. But if they are able to address them within themselves, then I suppose it's easier or clearer in how to address that at the organizational level. Yeah. And what I'm reminded of is so I love when I was teaching leadership to students in the university. I showed it to them because it really resonated with me. Simon Sinek's it was clip on YouTube and it was called the leaders eat last.
Yeah,
it's a famous one.
Yeah,
this is about root chakra. This is root chakra leadership, because when a leader is able to show that they can sacrifice themselves or their salary, their comfort, and in his case, he was showing a mother covering a child. Well, that's leadership. That's sacrificing her own life, if the need be, to save someone, to save her child. These are the qualities that are resonating with employees on a very deep level. And if they're not able to sense that the leader, through their actions, is able to do that, then there is no trust to start with.
It's like servant leadership. It's the good comparison.
It's good comparison, but servant leadership comes already up. You see, there is you got to have your prerequisites before you start overflowing. In a sense, there are a little bit deeper, different nuances here, and in a sense of that root chakra kind of ultimate sacrifice, if you will. I mean, how many scandals we had with when the salaries of leaders were uncovered. Absolutely, the CEOs of organizations with very big salaries, or and the gap between the employees and the lead and the CEOs, top management salaries is absolutely extreme. Or when employees were cut, redundancies were made, and yet the leaders didn't cut their salaries and stuff like that. I mean, this is what we're talking about in the corporate kind of sense, right? This is what represents the root chakra leadership. If you are able to show that, okay, I'm the first one to I'm going to do that for you, right? This is the part that helps create that trust for employees, that they know that they will be taken care of by their leader. So yeah.
Well, it's probably fair to say that, I mean, I work with leaders all the time, and I would say a lot of them aren't very grounded in their root chakra then, if that's the definition.
Yeah.
Some of them are. Some definitely are, but a lot aren't.
Well, that's a lot of then we have the space for this type of conversation to occupy it, so to speak. Then we have an opportunity to invite leaders to look deeper into themselves and see what it means for them to take care of someone. Who will they defend instinctually? It's like the parent within, almost. Of course, there are different, you can look at employees and leaders in different types of relationships, but this is the basis, right? This is the basis, and you gotta have it as a leader, because it's the ultimate responsibility for keeping your organization and people in it alive. Yeah, if it was the Stone Age, then it would be physically alive. But if
Yeah.
it is our age, then it will be financially alive, psychologically alive. I mean, in the root chakra is the core of your psychological safety, right? And
That's right.
and if we have imbalances in that, anxiety comes in, depression comes in, anger. Don't we have that in our organizations? If these expressions are expressions of unbalanced root chakra.
Yeah. And just our co-host AJ just said she agreed that many CEOs that she works with are in their head and float around in that area. They're often disconnected from their root chakras. She's just agreeing with what we're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And hello to Alexandra. Yeah, so kind of unwinding that level of symptoms or symptomatic space within within which organizations nowadays exist for people experiencing extreme anxiety and depression and being unheard, unrecognized. And the other important part of it is that the roots of organizational culture start here as well. Am I part of the family of that my organization is? You know, that very first question I asked, am I part of that family? Right? What are the values that are connecting us? Do I feel that I belong here at all or eventually? So this is all kind of conventional narrative in terms of leadership. But if we start looking at it from the perspective of chakra framework, that it adds important colors, I suppose, to this discourse, to this conversation.
So give us some practical things about it. Like if you're a leader and you're listening to this and you know that you are out of touch with your root chakra, what can you do about that?
I have it at the very end, but of my talk. But you know, I can talk about it now as well, of course. So, first of all, it's when you start asking questions like that, you're already on your way, because it's the kind of unconsciousness of your patterns that more or less gets you stuck. But once you start asking these questions, that's already good. And then the world is your oyster, so to speak. You can use whatever technologies of mind and body are there for you to use to start opening it up. And nobody needs, using Osho's words, to use the word chakras or feel anything. That's another big thing, that we think that if we feel some kind of energy going on, then or yes, it's there. But interestingly, very often when we're flowing or overflowing with energy, we just don't feel it that much. We just feel joyous or upbeat or something like that. Yeah. It's only when it's stuck then we start feeling, oh, something is not right. So yeah, and what can people do? Yoga, various types of yoga, dancing, starting to kind of connect into your joyous part and playful part as well. But important part of that, and this is, I think, where it starts. The feet, when the feet are on the floor, on the ground, this is your grounding. It's not so much about kind of dancing or whatever movement, which is very important, right? Is happening for you, whether you're dancing or you are walking, focusing on your feet. Very often sometimes you can just stomp your heels like this to start connecting a bit more with the earth, to be able to start feel that energy, right? What else? Mindfulness, and this is an integral part of any practice, for any leader, and a leader is such a word, for all of us, whether you're at the top of organization or not, it really doesn't matter. And in that mindfulness, what is happening, if the practices consistent is that you start seeing your own patterns. And they might coincide with issues that happened in your life, childhood, or traumas, or unexpressed or suppressed emotional issues and stuff like that. So some therapy around that could be great as well. Yeah.
Walking barefoot on the grass is
Well,
always a good one.
yes, I wrote earthing. I saw a documentary on earthing, which was absolutely fantastic. Yes. On my list, but I didn't say it. Yeah. Earthing is great. Just walking barefoot.
Because I think that's what matters. You're saying at the start, it's the practical part that matters. Like for even people listening to chakras, I think the main reason people want to know about chakras is, how does it impact their life? In what way can my life be better because I know this information, So it really is that sense of being grounded and connected that is what the core theme is. And as AJ said before, so many leaders that we see are in their heads, and it's almost like they're cut off at their neck and they're walking around like headless chickens. And that's often what we see in organizations, is decisions that are being made by people that are in their head. They're not actually embodied in any way at all. And I think you can definitely notice a massive, massive difference between a leader who is fully embodied and engaged and integrated at every step of their chakra system, as well as who they are. You just notice so many differences about the way that person leads in comparison to the way someone else might lead. It's very, very obvious when you see it.
Yes, it brings that authenticity to who you are, and the importance of root chakra. And I suppose we can talk about other chakras in some other time, but the importance of the first chakra is because this is the first step in the journey. And I mean, we can do so much for the heart and the ability to speak, the fifth chakra, and our intuition and intellectual abilities of the sixth chakra. But if the imbalances of that very first one are not reconciled with, you haven't started your journey.
Yeah.
And these are the deepest. These are the densest, right? These are the ones that are hardest, I suppose, to address, to face, to confront very often, because in kind of, again, theory of chakras, or the way they describe it, it is when the child is still an embryo, when we're in mother's womb, that's when the connection to the earth and kind of these decisions to leave are made, in a sense.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting, isn't it? Can I ask you, do you talk about this in business settings?
I started talking about it in business settings, yes.
Yeah, and what sort of response are you getting? I'm really fascinated by that.
It's cautious, but as I'm starting my business, I'm kind of talking to like-minded people to start with anyway at this point. But once I kind of establish it a little bit more, and I think, again, the wording is not as important as the message behind it.
Yeah, that's right. You can use different language. You don't even have to use
exactly. I was just about to say, you can say center, or you can say energy, or nothing, or whatever, or just kind of go into the root of the root, what you need to do, rather than focusing on the wording and the theory of it, so to speak. And that's why I mentioned in the very beginning, because that's not what matters. What matters is practice and the insights that we're all getting from the practice that we have and how we're transforming ourselves. And if they happen to be regarding the first chakra, the root chakra, then yes, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And are you working with leaders one-on-one and developing this as well?
That will be part of my, as I just started the business, I will come to this, but yes, that's part of my package, so to speak.
AJ's just made a couple of other comments. I'll just read them. She's saying that when we realize how disconnected modern society is. Indigenous cultures all around the world have many rituals and practices to ground people, from birthing babies in rivers, painting their bodies with mud, working with fire ceremonies, and cleansing and working with nature, all connected to the root chakra. Yeah. And the thing that strikes me about this is, even though we're talking about it as though it's kind of a new thing to talk about, this is centuries old. This is innate wisdom from, millennium before we all ever existed. This has been here for so long, it's not funny, and we're talking about it as though it's a new thing, and it's not.
No, it's not, absolutely. And that's why I look at this as simply an invitation to talk about eternal things. That's it.
Beautiful.
And about what's the most important is our development and how we awaken to who we truly are.
Absolutely, which is ultimately what we want, isn't it? We want evolved leaders who are connected to themselves and others. That's the goal.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, we've got about 3 or 4 minutes before we wrap up. So what would you like to share with us in those last 3 or 4 minutes?
I wanted to mention COVID, obviously, because this is one of the litmus tests for understanding root chakra leadership. Obviously, our survival is threatened, like on a global level, right, by this pandemic. And we can see who is on top of this situation and who is showing real leadership. But it's absolutely amazing to see how this is connected, because the war, famine, natural disasters, and any events that threaten our basic survival are all recorded within energies of the root chakra, right? So what we're going through today in this world is essentially the root chakra experience. This is the beginning. This is where we're all starting to feel that shaking. And in my slides and my notes I wrote, the world has been shaken. And this is the opportunity for everyone to start understanding how we can grow in this challenge. That's the root chakra. That's the root chakra.
And what a beautiful place to wrap up. And I think there's so much to get out of what you've spoken about, Ekaterina. But I think one of the things for me is valuing Indigenous wisdom that's been around forever and integrating it into more Western practices and ways of doing something is, to me, it's the future of everything, because it's the integration of those things where we do have a chance to have peace and to all be happy. And I think that's what we're aiming for. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I appreciate your wisdom and your energy and your root chakra and leadership conversation. It was fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle and Alexandra. Thank you.
No worries. So if you've been listening this morning, we now have a 1-hour break and we're coming back at 4 o'clock with AJ, who will be hosting our first afternoon speaker. And that speaker is Alicia Zantaya. So it would be awesome if you would come back and listen to Alicia and AJ at 4 p.m. And also, just a reminder, we do have a program called the Superhuman Experience. And the Superhuman Experience is all about you developing your spirituality in a safe place with a group of people who are going to help you journey. Among other things, diving into quantum physics and epigenetics and a whole range of other interesting topics. So if you're interested in that, jump inside the Facebook group and there'll be more details and a link that you can click on. Also, if you are watching afterwards, make sure you do a hashtag replay so that we know that you've come in afterwards. Again, massive thank you to everyone watching and everyone who's commented, and we'll see you all at 4 p.m. Take care. Thanks, Ekaterina.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Bye-bye.